One of the things that we need to think about as an economy and as a country, as we increase the skillability and the level of skilling and employability of our workforce, especially our young workforce, we need to recognize that the more productive our devices are, the better for us. One of the reasons I have moved to HP and I've really loved being at HP is because we are for the whole country. We are for every single socioeconomic strata. We are for every single household. We are not looking to be aspirational. We're looking to be aspirational, but aspirational in a way where people can think about what they value the most and get that out of our own brand. When you are the market leader, you have to continuously make sure that your leaders and levels all the way down to the frontline salesperson don't get complacent.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of In Conversation with Fortune India. And on today's show, we have a very special guest, Ms. Ipsita Dasgupta. She is the Senior VP and MD of India, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka at HP. Thank you, Ipsita, for taking time out on a Saturday.
It's a real
On
pleasure.
the show. What's interesting, Ipsita, about our conversation today is that we're just coming on the back of a survey. I mean, a report which puts in the 2025 sales of laptops and PCs, and that defines in some sense what HP is in India. But what's interesting about the number that's been put out is that it's a record 15.9 million sales in shipments. But when you picture that with the smartphones, it's just 1/10 of what smartphones is. So for me, the question is, whether is this the best that the PC market or the laptop market in India can structurally look like? Because increasingly, India is making smartphones as their primary go-to device. What's your...
It's a great question, Keshav, and one that I actually really enjoy talking about, because if you think about it, the fact that smartphones are prevalent across India, with more than, I think, 1.1 billion being used currently across the market, that's very much the case. We know that PC penetration is around 17% in the country, and that number is taking a lot of time to grow and rise. But if I just asked you, if you were to walk into a room and you were to see three children, one on a phone, one on a tablet, and one on a PC, which one would you believe would ace their exams tomorrow? Which one do you believe is collecting Instagram likes? And which one do you believe is watching Hotstar? And if I then proceed to ask you the second question, you walk into a room and you walk into a boardroom and you see three employees all working. Which one do you think is writing up this interview or this conversation? Which one do you think is really innovating? One of the things that we need to think about as an economy and as a country, as we increase the skillability and the level of skilling and employability of our workforce, especially our young workforce, we need to recognize that the more productive our devices are, the better for us. And, I have two young kids. I have 11-year-old twins. And like most other parents, I don't let them near handheld devices, but they already spend quite a bit of time on computers. If you look at the average child across, let's say, two markets, the United States and India, you will see that the digital consumption of entertainment is matched for both.
Sure.
But if you look at the amount of time a child spends on a PC in a place like the US versus the average in India, ours is very low because we are not still able to get the PC out into everyone's hands.
True.
So I realize that the numbers that you say are true, but I think it is our responsibility jointly as a community to drive more and more PC usage.
Mm-hmm. No, I can understand what you are saying, but the fact remains that structurally it's a challenge, right? Because if the handheld is going to be my primary device, even at offices, you reply to mails, you look at PowerPoints, you can now, with AI also coming in, you have an GPT, which is like an installed app in your other. If that remains a primary device for everything, even at offices, then that becomes like a structural, it's not a cyclical challenge. So the penetration that level that we are talking about might remain just the same. You like to say in so many years, India smartphone has penetration has increased substantially, but that's not the case with laptop. There's something about laptop that doesn't seem cool, even with the current generation.
I don't think that is the real issue. I think that what's prohibitive about the laptop is the cost differential, first of all, between the smartphone and the laptop. And then the other thing that I would say is a big piece of it is that when you look at a phone, the ecosystem that has been built around the phone makes it easily usable for multiple uh, things that you can do. You use the example to say you can respond to an email, but I will challenge you that if you sit down and you have to structure an email out, you will go sit at your desk and write it out. And your teams for whose work you are mostly reviewing will need their PCs to do their work. They're very unlikely to do it on a handheld device. We are finding more and more when we have these conversations and when we talk about the differences between the PC and these handheld devices. Government, schools, um, uh, MSME associations all talk about the importance of digitizing using the PC. So I don't think people have given up. I think people are more focused on identifying ways for value. And our focus at HP over the last 2 years has been to build use cases for the PC rather than just provide the PC for people to buy and figure out their own use cases.
So when you talk about making a use case for PCs, I mean it's well established in the commercial segment, right? In offices, in lab, you need laptops, and that's one segment that continues to be a strong point for HP, right? And you have the number one leader with nearly 30% market share. But how do you dig deep into a consumer market, which has been sluggish, which has its own, variables, plus it's, price sensitive. It has got intense competition. Not to say the commercial segment doesn't have, but consumer remains a much more lucrative yet a highly hyper competitive market. So how do you kind of differentiate your GTMs when you look at commercial versus a consumer?
So, interestingly, let's talk about consumer for a few minutes. If you think about the consumer space, largely college going kids buy a PC. There will be very few exceptions where a college going child will not require a PC and will not buy a PC. Where we have a gap compared to most of the West and many other countries is PCs getting into the hands of children well in advance of that age and time. And if you are not able to utilize a device that other countries and other people are getting access to way in advance, that puts you at a disadvantage. So we are spending a lot of time thinking about what that means and what that requires us to do. I have a 5-pillar vision for HP India. And the first one is put a PC in the hand of every child. What does that mean? That means in the highest socioeconomic stratas, we need to think about each child having their own PC. Even in my house, my children shared a PC for the longest amount of time. In the middle socioeconomic strata, where we know that in multiple homes, in Dharavi, for example, you will find 4 mobile phones, but you are still unlikely to find a PC. Getting a PC into a home. We all realize that in an Indian household, money is first spent on the children, then on elderly parents, on healthcare, then on the man, then on the woman. If we identify, and we are working significantly on some of these programs, and I'd love to tell you about them, ways to build the use case of education, ways to build the use case of income generation for an individual, ways to build a use case for quick skillability for young adults. You suddenly have a use case rather than a product. And we are doing a lot of work in this area. And then finally, in the lower socioeconomic strata, today, even where there are computer labs in government schools, children get on average 10 to 15 minutes every 2 weeks on the computer. That needs to increase to 4 to 5 hours a week. So putting a PC in the hand of every child doesn't mean putting a PC in every home. It means ensuring that children get the accessibility to a PC. And we are doing a lot across state governments, driving this effort or initiative to put PCs and labs in government schools.
Mm-hmm. But does that fundamentally address what you are as a CEO? When you look at a P&L, you really want the numbers to keep topping up. Like you're making a use case, but the use case, like you're saying that ultimately you also want it to reflect in sales, right? So you might use the institutional mechanism, you work with state governments. And again, with state governments, not every state government would have the priorities in, putting it as giving away laptop, unless it's an election manifesto. And we are seeing quite a few, at bulk, you might have that one pop. But are you seeing state governments really being, cognizant of the fact that, this is how it should be? This is a part of their education system, that laptops is not an, device, but it is an inherent element of this whole learning ecosystem. So how are you seeing that conversations happen?
Absolutely. And you've asked me three questions. They're all three great questions. So I'll start from the beginning and come to the one with state governments at the end. Your first question was, even if you see a need, is it translating into sales? It absolutely is. Let me give you an example. One of the channels that is a new channel that we have started to sell our laptops through is the telco channel. Storefronts that sell phones. And the reason we did that is we said a place where people are walking in to make a purchase, where for the most part, a consumer has 50% of the value or that cost of that phone in their pocket and is looking for affordability. Why don't we have in-store promoters and people who are talking about the PC and the value of the PC into that household? It has been one of our fastest growing segments. And if I were to say to you, if you look at 50% of our PCs are bought on affordability on the consumer side of the business, for the exact reason that I mentioned to you, as children are going into college, they need a PC. And we do a lot in affordability to enable them to have one as early and as soon as possible. New to credit customers, we have double the number of new to credit customers in my telco channels than I have in my regular PC channels. So you can see the translation and the growth in the business from the perspective of people recognizing the value. We are also doing a number of other things to be able to drive the idea of what this does for your child's education. See, the Indian education system is such a strong one, and it is so robust and developed over so much time that you're not going to influence what parents do in, let's say class 9 or class 10, because those years are very high stakes years. Everybody's working on getting their children into engineering, medical, CAs, etc. So there are defined, tried and tested means to do that. However, as we are getting into a more and more complex world, when it comes to technology, when it comes to AI, we don't want to be leaving our children behind. Second factor is, as you start to focus on children that are a little bit younger, you start to see that introducing technology into the mix, whether it's in a public space like a lab in a government school or it's in a home, is incredibly valuable for that child's ability to learn. And a little bit later, I'd love to talk to you about what the capacity is that we can do if we can get this in front of children. We're working with different independent software vendors that are driving learning tools for children that are in that next segment of age bracket, and bundling them with our devices to bring the use case of education into the home. And again, this is a place that we see enormous promise and capability. On what you said about government, you're absolutely right. Different state governments are at different points in this development. You look at Maharashtra, it wants to be an AI first state and wants to be the farthest along. Here we are doing 4 proofs of concept at 4 schools. One is a BMC school in Mumbai, and 3 are state government schools, where we are building AI labs. And the effort is to work with them. My sales leaders are identifying the trainers that will train the children on these labs. How do you maintain the lab? What do you need to be able to have in the lab? Because we believe that this can truly make a difference. Government across states are interested in this, and I am not even reaching out anymore. I have state governments reaching out to me saying, can we replicate what you're doing in Maharashtra? Can we replicate what you're doing in Karnataka? And the reason is simple. There is no group of people that is more aware of what the household needs. There is no group of people that are more focused on the three gaps or areas that we need as a country to put a lot more effort and energy. Educating our 250 million children who are in schools right now, making more employable the people that we have looking for employment, and increasing the ability to skill and skill fast.
So, even as you're speaking, I was just thinking about it, right? Like you are doing your best to create that ecosystem. You're creating those AI workshops and stuff like that, and you will have your laptops that kind of gets seeped into the system, right? And children will learn on it. All of that is fine. But here's my question that, as you kind of move out, as children grow, and there is always an aspirational value. And here's the challenge, like as you kind of get into the job, it's not like it's something that it stays with you for a child. When he's part of the whole process of learning in an AI lab, he will learn about what AI is. He's not looking at the hardware, which HP is, on what laptop did he learn or who gave that kind of impetus. But as he earns and steps into that, that journey ends maybe possibly for HP at that, but it begins for Apple because that becomes the aspirational laptop, right? So how do you straddle that piece, that you're catching them young, but you're not able to catch them when they kind of, at best, if they get onto the commercial, that's a different part. But on the consumer segment, the aspirational value for that child who, becomes an earning adult remains Apple, right? So how do you kind of capture that with an HP brand?
That doesn't concern me in the slightest because even today, anybody who is buying a laptop, 1 out of 3 are buying an HP. Any laptops you
remains.
see lying around, 1 out of 2 are HP. So I am not sure that we do not have aspirational laptops. In fact, if you look at our whole range, we have many, many aspirational laptops. I would think about it a little differently. First, I think our role as HPers in this market is to create the platform. When you think about quick commerce, you don't think about the fact, or quick commerce or e-commerce, you don't think about whether the platform is important to the child. You think about whether the delight, or to the child or the person, but the delight of being able to get a service or a capability. In my mind, we have the pulse of this country better than anyone else because of the stats that I just told you. That means we understand what our laptops are being used for. We have a touch point in every household. Think about the HP PC as the ally to a child or to a household as it becomes upwardly mobile. Our identity comes in tying to the identity of the family and the child. It doesn't come from an external aspiration. It's not the idea that you have to be good enough or big enough or have enough money or spend 95% of your average annual salary to attain me, but I will grow with you. I am not so sure that people will make choices that you will not believe the number of people who call me and say, I'm a diehard loyalist to HP and I've always been using HP.
Mhm. So that really, coming back onto the NTC part of it, new to credit, that's one thing that everyone seems to be exploiting to play that new cohort or, try to. What has been your experience through the NTC route? And, direct to consumer is also another channel that everyone seems to be exploring. How big will that be, especially the consumer segment for you to grow?
Uh, Great question, Keshav. So we are a partner first company. I have more than 28,500 partners across the country. That is why my reach is not matched. In any place that I want to run any kind of initiative, whether it is a learning initiative, whether it's a skilling initiative, whether it's an opportunity to meet new kinds of customers or have them walk in, or run any kind of program, I can reach any part of the country to do that. We are not only grateful for that, we have spent decades building that. So for us, what is most important is we have become increasingly, and we are a consumer centric company. But how we get to the consumer depends on where the consumer is. My view is we need to meet the customer where the customer is at and the way the customer wants to interact with us. If that is an in-store promoter at one of our own stores, that's great. If it is in a large format retail store, that's great. If it's on e-commerce or on our own online store, that's great. But we need to ensure that we segment our customers and understand where they are, particularly. On the new to credit customers, more and more, we find that, as I was mentioning before, children are getting younger and younger in the demand for PCs, as well as micro entrepreneurs. As you know, we have one of the lowest female workforce participations in the world. Very sad one compared to the rest of the world. Women entrepreneurs who are not able to leave the house because of demanding requirements in the home and the stakeholders in the home can utilize our PCs as allies. We have seen the impact of driving programs and initiatives for things like this. So we find that our new to credit consumers are ones that are largely looking for three things. They're looking for education for their children and what we can do to help drive it. They're looking for skilling for employment that they're already in, or they're looking for ways to generate income. And so we're driving programs across these things and identifying new to credit customers this way. And then finally, the channels that we're using. As I said to you, telco stores, we're finding our largest group of them. Why? For the same phenomenon that you said. People are used to having phones, they have access to them, giving them access and awareness to a new product that they're not thinking about, and they think it's too aspirational for them to have in their home. We're finding that as long as we get to them in the channel where they are at, we can make significant impact.
Right. Ishita, one interesting aspect, and I just keep from Vector Apple is a company that you also work for, is that they have created a huge product ecosystem around that, right? Which inputs software. So in the case of HP, you also have a strong ecosystem. It's not just laptop, there's printers, and the adjacencies around that. How are you leveraging that to create it as a one product, one ecosystem type of thing?
Yeah.
It's not you push every product individually, right?
Yeah.
So when you do a sale, you would obviously want a add-on with that printer, like you're saying that it's, especially in the consumer segment.
That's a great.
For school, I mean, when you say just buying a laptop today, most of the schools have printouts as assignments every week, day in, day out. Everything has gone virtual. They keep asking you to get. So how do you, I mean, are you kind of thinking through that, or do you already have a?
Absolutely. We're not only thinking through that, we already have it. We launched it in we launched multiple versions of this in our last two events, at our HP Imagine event and before that at CES. The concept of better together. But I want to just step back and tell you, philosophically, we have an interest in making sure that we are inclusive. So people who want a full ecosystem will have access because of what we can do better together. And I'll describe that a little bit. But we also don't want to lock anyone out who doesn't want to be caught in one ecosystem. And that is, HP will always lead with inclusivity. That is our mantra. It is one of the reasons you mentioned that I have been at other companies. One of the reasons I have moved to HP and I've really loved being at HP is because we are for the whole country. We are for every single socioeconomic strata. We are for every single household. We are not looking to be aspirational. We're looking to be aspirational, but aspirational in a way where people can think about what they value the most and get that out of our own brand. From a better together
you want
perspective.
To democratize rather than the aspirational in some sense. You're saying that you want to be inclusive.
We would do both. We have aspirational products. We also have the idea of aspiring to should not mean you are left out if you do not have the means. That's where we'd like to play, and we put most of our efforts into. You just asked me the question
on the Apple's ecosystem.
Yes, the better together. So let me just talk to you about the better together. You're aware that we have printers, we have PCs, we have services, and we also have Poly. They acquired a company called Polycom a few years ago. And Poly is collaborative tools. We have built into our PCs a lot of the Poly capabilities. So you have some really unique capabilities when you are utilizing both together, which include things like the ability to have sound barriers where if you are on a video conferencing call and you are working from home and there is a lot of noise, or you're in an airport, nobody on the other side can hear any of the other noise around you. And you can be very distinctive in the noise that is being made right outside of that cone or that wall, and it will not make impact. So these are the kinds of things that we have, really made sure factor in the ability to show up a certain way on video, the ability to make sure that you get information on how you are coming across in your meetings. So different ways to make the future worker or the current worker show up at their best. And then, as you said, even with printers, the AI capabilities we're building into printers not only allow us to put the two together, but allow us to make printing easier than it has ever been before.
See, on the number that we spoke about for PCs, it's laptops, it's around 16 million, right? And and that number is really tough to really go, right? I mean, it's just about manage to hit a high post what we had seen pre-pandemic levels. So it also means that the refurbish rate, or the replacement rate, the way it happens in smartphones is much higher. But it's not the case, I think, with laptops, where people would really want it to be either repaired or serviced kind of thing. So that makes services as a big income generator also when you have a volume base which is such low. So how do you create that stickiness around your services income to ensure that every laptop that gets sold outside of warranty comes back to your own stores and not goes to an unorganized retail? So aren't you also losing out in some sense of an incremental services business which otherwise would have come to you?
We are not losing out on an incremental services business. There is let me just step back and think about how to answer this. Services has 3 or 4 different aspects to it.
Right.
One way, and the most compelling way to think about services, is not just the service of the computer, but what it can deliver for you.
Sure.
And more, we are working on AI solutions that allow services to be more about what you experience on the PC.
Sure.
And so that is sort of the biggest piece of the business. Also, I want to just step back a little. Yes, 17% penetration of PCs in the market, but we are such a big market that in India, we are a pretty sizable business. And if you look at all the companies I have worked at before, India is the most sizable for us as HP than any of the other companies I've worked for. So that's just to keep in mind.
24,000 crore like the last financial year's numbers put together for HP in India.
You can find the numbers in the public domain. But my point being that India is a sizable part of the business. So this idea that it is really hard to grow, we're the fastest growing market for HP. We are also off a very big base. So I would not say that we're really struggling to sell PCs in this market. In fact, the opposite is true. It is probably the market that most investments have been made in because of how well this market is doing. The other pieces of services is really on the commercial side, there's a lot that we're doing to, for example, monitor fleets and ensure that we get the most, provide the best return on investment on fleet management and anticipating requirements on the PC. The same thing is true on our consumer side of the business, but not from a fleet perspective, but the inbuilt ability into the machine to anticipate requirements of services that will be required. I don't know that kind of servicing can be just done by anybody. It really requires the software to be sitting on the system.
Right.
And the other piece is one not to be ignored, which is security. Security is a very, very important part of how we think about devices. And if you think about even as a country, we would want to make sure that our devices for even individuals are as secure as they possibly can be. And the security services that are provided on our PCs make a big difference, both for the consumer sector as well as for the commercial sector.
Coming to the commercial sector, what is the holy grail? What is the market opportunity that you are really bullish about, SMEs, SMBs as they put it, are a big portion of just for any other software players also, including SaaS. How are you exploiting that market?
Yeah.
Because it's also a growing market, it's also a price sensitive market in some sense, right?
Yes. Yes. So let me tell you, I mean, I have spoken about this a lot. I think we are extremely bullish about the Indian enterprise in general, because the rate at which India Inc. has been growing, the aggressive growth aspirations, and the number of businesses that have sprung up as well as grown is enormous. So overall, the context of the Indian company, not just MNCs and GCCs, but the Indian company has been a big area of my focus since I've come into the business. But as you rightly said, the MSME sector is one that we are extremely bullish about. And it is probably where we have done the largest number of initiatives. There's 75 million MSMEs in India today, approximately 34-35% of GDP, and continuing to grow strong, as well as feeding into India Inc. as they grow bigger. Digitization is minimal.
Right.
However, what we find, I cannot tell you, Keshav, the number of times I will walk off a stage addressing MSMEs where people will come up to me and say, we are happy to buy HP devices. We know they're solid. We know they're dependable. Can you teach us how to use AI? Can you help with our workforce on how to use AI? We don't want to be left behind. So one of the areas that really concerns us and concerns me is not the divide for individual consumers, but the demographic divide that can be created between large enterprise that can experiment with a lot of AI and smaller businesses that will not have the wherewithal and the ability to experiment with as much AI. To this effect, we've launched 3 or 4 initiatives. You've heard of our HP World stores. We have more than 700 HP World stores across the country. We've launched something similar for the MSME called HP Connect.
Okay.
We currently have 10. In the next year, we will launch another 10, largely in tier 2, tier 3 cities. The idea, imagine almost being a customer demo center where, and we are setting them up in clusters of SMEs.
Okay.
And they are very industry specific solutions. So as an SME, you can be within
That zone.
walking distance, and you can treat this HP Connect as your IT department. You can treat it as your CIO, because many of these companies don't have IT departments and CIOs. But you can also come in for a consultative set of conversations to understand what you would need your configuration, your IT configuration to look like, etc. We have been doing this over the last year. We have had, I think, a unique set of some 6,000 MSMEs that we have not worked with before come in and avail of our services. The other thing we've done is we have partnered with the Confederation of Indian Industries. We built a center for AI together. And through it, across 21 cities in India, we have actually trained 7,000 MSMEs on how to use AI at a day-to-day level for their HR professionals, finance professionals, marketing professionals, sales professionals. And this is largely to ensure that we help in the digitization process of MSMEs. We have seen that MSMEs are digitized have 2 times the profitable growth of an MSME that doesn't. So it is a large bet for us.
So on that large bet, 70 plus millions, the number looks massive. But from a threshold perspective for you, actually signing a deal, what is the size, both in terms of, the number of employees, or is it in terms of the number of revenue? I mean, is there a cutoff that where you think that this is where the potential for you to exploit is much higher, because you also have very small micro may not necessarily be a
which
potential.
Actually fall into our consumer segment all the time.
Okay.
Outside of the student community, micro entrepreneurs are our consumers. So
small and medium remains your commercial in some sense. Okay.
So across the board is important to us because, frankly, a computer, a PC, allows a person to have, especially now with the use of agents, a lot more help. So we are going to see more and more smaller entities rather than larger entities. We don't have a threshold concern about the
in
size
terms of
of an
size.
MSME.
This is something interesting because, SaaS players, you including the likes of Adobe and all, they've all, moved on to a subscription kind of a model, so that the initial costs come kind of lower. Is that the thought that HPS also kind of made it that, let's do it this way so that the addressable market not just widens, but the stickiness of customer also stays when you do that?
It's an intriguing business model that I have been thinking about since I've come into HP. But as you and I both know, device as a service is not so easy at the consumer level.
Especially for SMBs, because that becomes in some sense a sticky part because they have signed up for
on the
it.
commercial side, absolutely. We're doing a lot of work around this. In some ways, it looks like a rental model. In other places, it is our device as a service model where we take care of the devices, we take care of the services.
Is it a scalable one? I mean, both on the commercial, or does it have challenges vis-a-vis a pure software play?
No, I actually think not only is it scalable, but through our rental models, we're seeing it be quite successful because a lot of smaller companies find it more useful to use the rental model rather than acquire the capex cost of
it. Okay. So is there a certain proportion of revenues that comes through this model, or is it still at a pilot stage?
It's not at a pilot stage. It's a part of our business, but it is not a huge part of our business yet.
So it's just thinking about it. Would you kind of bundle your hardware with an Salesforce CRM, and does that increase your reach in terms of the addressable market? If Salesforce is pitching as a CRM towards enterprises, a tie-up with an Salesforce, does that kind of also make a good strong offering?
I don't think that we actually need to bundle with something like Salesforce because
it's just one of those revenue generating ideas.
For MSMEs and consumers, we are looking at many bundling options, and we are working on many bundling options that naturally are useful for the smaller and medium-sized enterprises.
Right.
That can be across financial software, it can be sales software, it can be marketing software, it can be HR software. Agreed that the more that we are able to think of ways to bundle that make it easy for
especially for SMBs, because
consumer and a
CRM remains a important part of their ERP spend.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we are working significantly with a whole set of ISVs that work with small and medium-sized enterprises. Largely looking at the way we have approached it is we've said, what are they using software for, and then what should we bundle to do? So we are working backwards from the market rather than putting a bundle together and going out to the market.
The other aspect of HP's growth strategy has been, the global CEO was also here, and he said that, producing in India, making in India and selling it will be a much more economical proposition, and they will see how it kind of, plays out in the coming years. But what's your own sense of, at what threshold of volumes or shipments does it become viable to make and sell in India? And we have seen that success play out largely in smartphones with Apple able to do what it is. But for a laptop or a PC maker, what is that sustainable threshold volume where you can say, hey, now is the time that, the India story is truly well on its course?
I don't think it's the volume of the sales at this point, because the volumes are robust and continue to grow.
Then why is that no production?
I think what it is the development of the ecosystem. And as the PC ecosystem develops in India, we will see more and more production. As you already know, we are producing in India.
Right.
And we are very proud of the fact that we're producing in India. But I would say, as you are aware, right now, with the escalating costs on both processors and storage and memory,
true,
there is a lot of ambiguity in supply
Yeah,
And
supply
so
chain. Yeah,
there will need to be
Right.
some time
Stabilization of
for the
that.
stabilization of these escalating costs and supply before we continue to see the kind of growth that we were seeing already. Uh, One of the things that I think will be a big plus for India is the amount of emphasis and focus that is being put on supply chain development. We should continue to lean in on bringing some of the best supply chain experts in the world to move to India and work in India. We should continue to build the ecosystem capabilities that government is already committed to. We already saw in multiple budgets.
Hmm.
All those things will be a big factor in
Hmm.
driving more success on and more growth in PC manufacturing.
Hmm. We didn't touch upon AI as much as we should want to. According to you, AI is a software story or is it a hardware story or it's a bundle story? And does AI infused? I mean, that is what in software they are saying AI infused softwares. I mean, even SaaS says it's AI infused. But for an hardware manufacturer
Yeah.
like HP, what does AI play mean? I mean, is it AI, created an AI specific kind of laptops which you can derive a premium to? Is that where the holy grail for AI lies? I mean, for the hardware
See,
manufacturers.
my view, Keshav, is that the beauty of AI is that nobody who's using AI should worry whether it's coming from the software or hardware or anywhere else. AI should be as intuitive as you and I talking.
Hmm.
As we are having a conversation, as we are iterating back and forth, I'm not spending time thinking about whether it's your software or your hardware that is driving this conversation, and nor are you with me. And that's the beauty of AI. If you think about what it's going to need, at least from a hardware perspective, it will need the computing power
Hmm.
to be able to hold multiple agents.
Hmm.
I can already see by using multiple agents how important it is to have the processing power
Hmm.
to be able to drive what you need from an AI use case or an AI capability. The second thing is, for a country like India, we cannot depend entirely on centralized data centers.
Hmm.
It is too expensive, it's not cost effective, and it will become a sustainability issue for us. So having AI on the edge and being able to have the computing power on the endpoint
Hmm.
is going to be really important. And it's interesting to have seen the shift from where AI conversations started with enterprise and SMEs to today, where it is, where everybody is looking for that hybrid model. And
True.
everybody is reaching out to us to say, what is the highest processing power that I can have sitting on the edge, and what can it do for me? So I think it'll be the combination of the two that will drive the highest value, and it should be seamless to the customer. They shouldn't even pay attention or notice it.
What it is, yeah. Uh, Ipsita, now it's 2.5 years since you're taken over
That's right.
as the MD at HP. When you are in charge of a P&L, how you look at capital allocation and how you look at business decisions is very different when you are not at that in that hot seat. So if you could articulate some of your learnings in this 2.5 years that you would want to share in terms of what are the things that you unlearned in this journey and what is it that are really insightful thus far.
It's a great question. As I said to you, we are a very sizable part of global HP.
Hmm.
Of all the brands I've worked for, this is the most sizable part of, share of the company.
Hmm.
That in and of itself was quite a learning, because you do things and it impacts global in a big way.
Hmm.
So the responsibility that comes with that. And then we are also the highest and fastest growth market in the world. It is one thing to be the fastest growth from a small base. It is another thing to be a big base and growing slowly. It is something completely different to be both at the same time. I think that has been one of the most fascinating pieces of doing this, because one, the reach that we have, and the reach that we have because of our 28,000, 29,000 partners, 28,500 to be exact, across the country, allows us to run a lot of experiments and to see whether they work. We are not a typical MNC. We are deep in the ground. We know how to get things done on the ground. That was a big learning for me. I have been across multiple MNCs that struggle with getting things on the ground done. That is not the case for us, because many of the people who work and have worked with HP for decades are our partners, who are Indian MSMEs, Indian entrepreneurs sitting in the market in far-flung parts of the country. So one large piece is that partner first, distribution heavy business that I've had. It's been a real pleasure to understand the sheer muscle it gives you and the ability it gives you to experiment quickly, fail fast in some places, and move forward and do more. The other piece is, I think that it is it's really important in an organization like this one, where execution is one of the biggest strengths. If you complement it with a vision and direction, because the brilliance of the execution is only fully leveraged if everybody is marching to the same drumbeat and moving in the same direction. And I think that was another piece that was really interesting to me. And I spent probably my first 6 months, along with understanding the business, clearly developing who do we want to be. A lot of your questions answered what the vision is. There are 5 pillars to the vision. Put a PC in the hand of every child, drive the MSME sector, and help create the growth. Enable the future-ready workforce, so enable skilling and capability. Power India Inc., so understand the needs of verticals in India Inc. and help drive as a technology leader, not as a seller of a commodity product, but as a tech leader in the market. And then work and partner with government side by side to drive employability, skilling, and education. I think that has really made a very big difference. And then finally, when you are the market leader, you have to continuously make sure that your leaders and levels all the way down to the frontline salesperson don't get complacent, because it is
At the top you can afford to
it
get
is pretty powerful that 1 out of every 3 PCs sold are ours, 1 out of every 2 that exist are ours. But we always have to remember that we need to act like a startup. I often use the phrase that you need to behave as though if you didn't create the profitable growth that you need to create this week, you can't put food on the table and you can't pay your children's school fees. And keeping that mindset going is a very important part of how to stay the fastest growing and ahead of the overall business.
So if professional, I would say one of your goals would be not to get complacent by being at the top. What would be that one personal goal that you want to achieve?
For me, I would say from a business point of view, knowing every single type of consumer or customer and what they would want or need. That to me is most powerful. Anchoring it with the customer. I have every company I've been at, every business I have run or supported, I have built categorization after categorization in my head of what is another kind of customer I've not thought of? What's another kind of customer I've not thought of? To me, being able to know everybody who is walking in or not walking into a store, looking for us or not looking for us, what would the needs of that customer be? And I always tell my teams, don't start with the product, start with the customer. So for me, that learning. And on the personal side of the equation, I think the ability to continue to learn and adapt. We are changing at such a fast rate that the ability to capture learnings. So I spend a lot of time, even with a 70, 80-hour work week, I add another 10 hours just to learn on a weekly basis, because otherwise you're never going to be able to keep up because there's just too much information, but you don't even feel like you're trying. So I would say those are the 2 large goals.
Okay, thank you, Ipsita, for that lovely conversation. Don't get complacent and keep trying. That's the big takeaway from this edition of In Conversation with Fortune India. Thank you for watching.